Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, NBs of all ages, welcome back to the Corporate Esports Association League of Legends League. My name is Fennec, joined on the desk today, as always, by the lovely Thousand Eyes, and we are in week 4 with Qualia versus Adobe Aftershock effects. Love myself a good pun. How are we feeling going into today's best of 3 match?
I am excited because we have a couple of really interesting types of players here. There's the possibility of some unique picks, which I am always excited to see and how that plays around. And we'll have to see how these drafts work out. So we should be getting ready to go into the draft very shortly here, and we'll see what they want to pick up.
Yeah, and interesting things to note. We actually have previous CEA champions, although from Overwatch, not from League of Legends, on Adobe Aftershock effects. This is week 4, and as part of the Swiss system, both teams are going to have the same record. Both teams currently sitting at 1 and 2 in the Swiss, looking to go ahead and even up their score and to the later half of the season. Qualia is going to start out the series on the blue side, and as their captain, I believe that is Soliloquin, if I'm not mistaken. No, sorry,
Mhm.
Soliloquin is the Adobe captain, excuse me.
Yes.
Sorry, the captain, Tadochi, actually, let me know. They are a digital real estate closing platform. Closing out real estate deals and stuff like that. I don't really know much.
Houses. Have we lost
And
Finnick?
engineering teams.
Oh, there we
Uh,
go.
oh, wait, okay. My
We
internet,
lost you for a second.
Comcast. Thank you very much. No,
It just
um,
cut out and I just said houses, so it's fine. It's totally natural right now.
exactly. Members of the engineering and customer success team are playing on it, and this is their first time playing in CEA. They heard about CEA this year, knew that they had a bunch of video game players at the company, and decided to go through with that. Interesting facts about the team: their jungler JPQ Have Track at one point was a top laner and assistant coach for University of California Irvine's Collegiate League of Legends team. So that is the player to look out for from Qualia, according
Mhm.
to their captain Tadochi. They are supporting Give Directly, which is a organization that transfers cash directly to households in developing countries via mobile phone-linked payment services. It targets extremely low-income households and people affected by humanitarian crises. The proportion of total expenses that Give Directly is delivered directly to recipients is approximately 83% overall. And they chose to support Give Directly specifically because of that high number or that high amount of donations that consistently reaches targets. Meanwhile, though, red side, it is Adobe Aftershock effects. As we already mentioned, a couple of these players were on Adobe Illustrators, which was an Overwatch championship, or was the Overwatch champions back in spring 2020. As the notes that I have here, I believe the members were Takeji, who at the time was Jakey Jake and ZFG, who was Yum Yum on that team. If you want to go back through the VODs, they're available on the CEA YouTube channel. They are supporting Child's Play, which is a charity that collaborates with children's hospitals and donates toys and games. And reasons they are supporting them, they think that gaming has left a positive impact on a lot of people's lives, and they want to donate to a charity that spreads that joy to children. And this is the first year that these players are all together in League of Legends in CEA. As we mentioned, these guys have played in other leagues. This is just League of Legends for them this time around. Everyone is an ADC main, so they're all mechanics and no brain. And apparently they have a strong mental as well, so hopefully we'll see that come out. Teams actually relatively interesting mix. Both of them going all the way from silver up to diamond in terms of previous season ranks here. So
Mhm.
I'm very excited to see where these mismatches happen and how well the teams are able to move together across the map, where the shot calling comes through. We're about to get into the draft here. Any final thoughts as the first bands come in?
I mean, yeah, I think JPQ is really kind of the big player to watch for Qualia here because, like, not only was he previously Diamond last season, but was Master in previous seasons. So, like, very much a solid player and will be kind of, as the jungler, be able to get snowballs rolling, start getting the team ahead. Uh, Meanwhile, like, Tekaji and like all the other players there, they have uh yes, they're on not their main roles, but they do have those mechanics. You can put some AD carries into other roles like the mid lane there. So there's a lot of opportunity there to get into different things as we are now getting through this draft here. Couple of meta bans, which I'm happy to see. The Udyr and the Seraphine taken off the board despite the nerfs on the current patch. The Swain, the Nidalee, the Karthus, those are really trying to take away those top jungle picks and the 80 carry pick for Qualia. The Swain is not a support pick; it is a bot lane carry pick for Qualia.
That said, though, triple jungle ban's actually coming out from Qualia. JPQ have track. Apparently, their strongest player here doesn't want to play the Udyr, decides to ban that one out of the way. It does leave Hecarim up here, though, for Adobe Aftershock effects. I love that name. He'll be up against Takeji in that jungle, so a little bit of DVP action, Diamond versus Plat action in there. So we'll see actually how well these guys will path as we go through this early game, right? A lot of the
Mm-hmm.
differences between, a high level diamond player and a plat player end up being, these early paths. How effective are they at exerting pressure early in, especially when you have a Graves and a Hecarim, both of whom like invading with their mid laners and like making things happen early. Tristana also being picked up here by Adobe Aftershock effects. This is a pick that we've seen rise in popularity over the last couple of patches, and she's really shining this particular patch.
Yeah, it kind of old bell curve for the Tristana power spike here. You got the really early game where you have the Hail of Blades, you hop in and you get a huge burst of damage with the explosive charge. Then you hit a mid game kind of power trough where you're still building items and doing damage. And then late game, you got the long range, you've got the all the crit that you need, all of that. So that is really kind of what you're looking at when you see this Tristana. It does get a little bit it makes your composition a little weird because Tristana can be flexed into the mid lane here. Like you said, I am really interested in that jungle matchup there because yes, Graves and Hecarim are both similar in that they're really strong in terms of the early game, but Graves is much more about farming, much more about trying to get as much gold in his pocket so that he can kind of become a secondary carry in fights. Whereas Hecarim is really looking to just pick people off, hop into these ganks, especially post level 6, and open up opportunities for the rest of his team to do damage and create opportunities for.
That said, we see the rest of the bot lanes come out. That is not Gangplank, that is actually Thresh coming out from the side of Qualia.
Ah.
So it is Thresh Jinx up against Tristana Morgana. Anytime you pick up a Thresh and the other guy, or the other team, excuse me, uh, OW After Effects, Soliloquent, I apologize for that. Uh, Basically, anytime you see a Thresh being picked, if you play Morgana and it's a good enough lane partner with your AD carry pick, you go ahead and pick that. Morgana, Black
Mhm.
Shield with Thresh Hook. It's counter as old as time. And when you see both these AD carries, you see a lot of actually similar power spikes, right? Both very strong late. Both actually have a very strong laning phase as well with that mid game power depth, that inverted bell curve that you were talking about from this Jinx. So very similar styles actually coming out from the first 3 picks of this draft as we move on to the R4, B4, B5, and R5 picks.
Yeah, it is still possible this Tristana does go into the mid lane. It does basically force Qualia to pick something that, as long as they show the top laner here, it forces Qualia to basically respect the fact that the Tristana can be flexed into the mid lane. Yeah, I think that's the right call. Get your Gnar here, give yourself a little bit more frontline while also being a solid blind pick in the top lane. Now, Qualia can't pick something like a Cassidon. They can't pick something that has a really weak laning phase or has the possibility of getting jumped, because they can just shove this Tristana in the mid lane and Tristana will run rampant over any kind of like a backline mage that has to scale up. So Qualia here now gonna have to pick, yeah, the Cho'Gath, a pretty solid just base level, I don't want to lose too hard lane. Cho'Gath generally we've seen a couple of picks, or a couple of ways to build the Cho'Gath against the Gnar. I think the best way is just to go that straight tank, survive through the laning phase, and then hit that mid game where you're able to be enough of a front line that Gnar can't just ignore you and jump past you. There we go. All right. So Diana has been rising in popularity. I'm really, really excited to see this. Um, I've seen it a lot in higher elos. Diana has a lot of burst potential. She can create opportunities with her ultimate there, and she works really well in a pick skirmish type of composition. Meanwhile, though, the Kassadin is pretty much just a straight up counter pick. Diana's never going to be able to poke Kassadin out of lane because of his passive, and because of the melee nature of Diana, Kassadin does even better in that lane. It gives Kassadin the opportunity to skip that fleet footwork and go for something a little more aggressive like the electrocute there. And once, level 6s start coming in, that's when Diana can actually try and solo kill, but Kassadin already has the Rift Walk, so he'll be able to just avoid any kind of weaknesses in this lane. And level 11 is when Kassadin really comes online, and this Jinx is going to have to be playing scared the entire time.
Yeah, no real ways to peel the Kassadin. Obviously, Blind Galio not the option you want to go for there, because then Tristana just goes mid and you lose
Yep.
mid lane, right? Um, but at the same time, right, you see this draft from ADBE Aftershock effects, and honestly, it looks really, really strong. They
Yeah.
have a lane to play around early in that Gnar lane with the Hecarim. You can also play around the bot side lane with Tristana Morgana. However, up into a Thresh Jinx, perhaps that lane is a little bit more equal. Hecarim can go ahead, start snowballing the Gnar, move into that split push. You have a deadly 1-3-1 combination, as you mentioned, on that level 11 from the Kassadin. Meanwhile, Qualia, they have the ability to match one of the 1-3-1 with the Diana, but Cho'Gath is not the best split push matcher. And when you're up against a comp that very obviously wants to split, it can be very difficult. On top of that, you uh, go ahead. I was gonna
Yeah.
talk about scaling here, but I
Yeah.
think you
So
wanna.
I don't think the Cho'Gath is actually, if this is tank Cho'Gath, I think can actually handle the Gnar split push late, because Gnar's range is not exactly super long, and Cho'Gath will be tanky enough to be able to just kind of shrug off the damage late game. This is really an early game lane for the Gnar, and then it really kind of evens out in the late game and can actually be a little bit Cho'Gath favored depending on how well the Gnar player can manage the rage bar. Um, so yeah, like you said, the Gnar will be able to win that matchup early. The bot lane is very much who gets the early damage down, who gets the early advantage, and can they keep that advantage? It's very malleable in terms of who's going to win that. Technically, it is the Morgana side favored, like you said, with the Black Shield can really survive a long time with that kind of combination. However, there is the possibility of the Black Shield going down, the hook coming back off cooldown because it is a long cooldown for the Black Shield, and then getting engaged on once again. So it's really about that Black Shield management and recognizing, do I need to use this now, or is there a possibility of this being a bait while the jungler comes?
Yeah, and speaking of jungle, right, you have Graves, you have Hecarim, both of whom want to make those early ganks happen. As you mentioned, Graves a little bit more of a power farmer than Hecarim, who can go for these level 2 even ganks, especially mid lane is where Hecarim typically will gank level 2. If he opts for that, typically we don't see him gank until level 3, level 4, though. Graves wanted to get gold in him. We take a look at power spikes for everyone. We already mentioned the top lane, Gnar spikes early. We already mentioned the bot lane, both of them just kind of going like, whoop, mid lane and jungle. We have these flip for both these teams. Graves, while he does have a lot of early pressure, excels in the late game with the current build that he goes, which is with the Gale Force and the crit style of build. Although, depending on the situation, you could go shield bow if you wanted to. Hecarim falling off in that particular late game. That said, you look mid game, it's Kassadin v Diana. tell me who wins early, who wins late. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah, I mean, so technically Diana is going to win that early, but it is going to be just kind of like a I'm gonna farm a little bit easier. Once you do hit like the level 9 and level 11 breakpoints, that's where Kassadin is going to start to be just uncontrollable for Diana. Not that Diana is going to lose explicitly to it, but Kassadin is going to be able to basically do what he wants, whether it's engage, whether it's farm safely and go other lanes. That's kind of like the big thing here. And I think if this Kassadin does get fed early, there is a strong inclination for Jinx and Graves to both get that shield bow, stop that initial burst coming through on the Kassadin, and try and survive through it. Because if you can do that, there's the possibility of pumping enough damage into the Kassadin who has jumped onto your backline and then blowing him up. That is something that is an adaptation that I think could really work well depending on the game state.
Well, on top of that, I think late game we're gonna have to watch for the defensive Moonfall up against the Kassadin. That's really the only form of peel that they have up against that cast. I mean, obviously Galio used Shielded Durant, but or like Lysandra, more classical counters to Galio, there are easier options. But when you're in this kind of assassin v assassin matchup, and it's a Kassadin, once he hits level 16, he is basically unkillable. If you don't have a peel tool, you need to look for that Moonfall.
Yeah. I
That's
do want to
sorry, go ahead.
just real quick. Cho'Gath silence can play a huge part in that because late game you're going to be expecting to get in, get out, and Cho'Gath silence will keep you in longer than you might expect.
I completely forgot about Cho'Gath Silence, honestly. It's a very good point. I mean, Feral Scream is not an ability that we typically think about all that often when we think about Cho'Gath because it's the last ability that he maxes, right? But I think you're exactly right. That silence can be so devastating towards Kassadin, as Kassadin's silence can be so devastating towards people he's up against, right? He has a silence, he has to be able to deal with the Diana
Well, I
through
mean,
her
it's
full
not
combo and
silence
era, but
anymore. It just interrupts.
okay, well, it as the Anivia player, it basically does the same thing. All right.
Yeah, it's
Um,
it's it's really good against channeled abilities, but I don't think there's really anything that's going to be channeled.
I yeah. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Look, I forgot it wasn't a silence anymore.
You've
How
played
long
too
ago
much
has it
season
been?
3 Kassadin.
Oh, yeah. Look. All right. I apologize. We actually have a season 3 logo or summoner icon as we are loading into the game now. A very quick load actually. So we are right into the game. On the blue side, it is Qualia with Tadochi in the top lane, JPQ half track in the jungle, Yurts in the mid lane, Proto Baggins in AD carry, and Liate in support. Man, I love good puns.
And over on the red side, we have ADBE Aftershock effects. We have Viper in the top lane, Takeji on jungle, ZFG1 in mid lane, Chalazi in the AD carry position, and Soliloquin in support.
Lots of puns on the map today. Love me
Absolutely.
some puns. That said, 5-point start from both of these teams. Nothing too insane on the level ones from either, so it makes sense. That said, defensive ward was placed by Adobe Aftershock effects to keep the Graves from potentially going in there. Will attempt to do so, but now they know that the Graves is going for solo and decide against making anything else happen. So the vision game actually benefits Qualia ever so slightly here. Although there is slightly more level 1 information for Adobe Aftershock effects.
Yeah, they saw the ward on the top side. They're gonna know if they're gonna get spotted. That ward, honestly, if you pull the raptors towards that bush near the tower, you can avoid that ward. That actually shouldn't see. Yeah, that ward's actually not gonna see you doing raptors. So that will be basically just a protection ward against any kind of mid lane gank after Raptors are red buff, but it's not going to provide any information as far as pathing.
Indeed. However, maybe Takeshi is like, whatever, I'll just take the Raptors normally anyway. It's fine. You never know.
It's
You
going to
never
keep
know.
Diana safe, which I think in the idea of keeping the Diana from letting Kassadin snowball and get off the ground before you really want him to. That I think is very important. If Diana basically falls behind the Kassadin at any point, she is never going to recover.
Yeah, and the other thing is, so I was taking a look at ranks again. There is a big rank disparity in the mid lane. ZFG Diamond, while Yurts, at least according to our sources, is a gold level player. Which, as someone who's played as a gold level player up against diamond players before in mixed rank, not really a great idea. Typically, it says silence. By the way, that is still technically a silence.
Yes, but it lasts like 3 seconds or something like that. It's incredibly like small. It's intended to be an interrupt, not anything less.
I hate counters to Anivia. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, regardless, because of that, you know, taking this kind of high fear matchup of the Diana, taking something a little bit higher skill can be very daunting when you're in these types of matchups. But if there's enough comfort on the champion, I think comfort triumphs all whenever in these types of situations. Nice off the bot side. So you were talking about whoever wins the early damage wins the lane. Qualia doing that quite well, actually, early on in this game.
Yeah, these black shields coming out a little bit late. They need to be, as the hook is prepping, you got to throw that black shield onto your Tristana.
Oh, great mid lane. Nicely done. JPQ half track. Getting that one is so lazy. Very, very low bot side. Yurts, though, very low himself. Ends up getting shielded up, but taken out by Takeji in the meantime. But Takeji should be traded by JPQ half track. Just barely gets out with about 50 health. So a trade of 1-for-1 in the mid lane. Mid laner for mid laner, but this actually advantages the Kassadin because he has the TP. This can be very, very deadly for ADBE Aftershock effects, because he'll be able to pick up not only a 10 CS lead, but probably around 15 when it's all said and done off of that kill from Takeji, so nicely played.
Yeah, JPQ getting a lot of great burst damage down, but then the follow-up from Takeji to be able to even that out. Unfortunately, the Diana not getting that kill. That's really what you would have loved to see. Give Diana, you know, a good power spike. Because you can see Diana at this point can bully the Kassadin a bit. With an extra kill, that would have been a lot more in terms of just an advantage.
More importantly, right? She's 10 CS down. So the gold-wise, Kassadin's actually ahead despite that. And experience-wise, he has almost a full level on Year, somewhere around, I believe, 2/3 to 3/4 of a level at the moment. And that hurts a lot. That hurts a lot as the Diana in this matchup. You want to be able to at least maintain and experience evenness on this Kassadin early. Once he hits level 6, he's basically unkillable for Diana, and you have to rely, as you mentioned, on the Cho'Gath silence to really do anything. That said, first dragon has spawned this game and is the Cloud Dragon. Neither team positioning towards that quite yet, but Vision favoring Qualia in that bottom river.
It is also important to note, too, that you say Kassadin is unkillable. There is the caveat of if Kassadin does Rift Walk aggressively in that early, before the level 11 point, the Rift Walk is about 6-second cooldown, so it will be a little bit of a gamble to Rift Walk aggressively without any kind of help. So that will still force the Kassadin to play a little bit safely. Meanwhile, I do kind of want to talk about this top lane here because Tadachi is running the Comet, actually. So I'm a little surprised by that. I know that Grasp kind of is a little rough as far as playing against the
hello! Nice collateral damage from IPQ half track, and in comes the Moonfall Takeji, down to about 100 health. Follow-up damage is there, and JPQ half track picks up a double kill in the mid lane.
Yeah, that is very, very good, and that's kind of what we talked about too with the aggressive Rift Walk. If you try and trade with the Rift Walk there and the jungle is around, you will get punished for that. So good capitalization by JPQ and a little bit over aggressive from ZFG to try and punish this Diana.
Yeah, and a stolen blue buff to seal the deal. Back to that top lane rune choice, I think it's because, or it's the same reason you take Comet on tank Malphite. It's for the mana flow ban.
Yeah,
Uh, and the extra poke that it gives you. Like, he's still building tank. We see the double
yeah.
cloth armor come out.
It was
Most likely
worrying
be
to
a
me.
player, but
It just worried me to see the
yeah.
comment immediately. I was like, oh no, is this going to be an AP Cho'Gath? Because that's incredibly risky to play against a Gnar. I still feel a little bit like maybe running the grasp would be more beneficial going into that late game. Will give you does give you a little bit more tankiness, gives you a little bit more in fight sustain. But I mean, I just more was worried about like, oh, is this gonna be AP?
Yeah.
But we're gonna see the tank come through, Merc treads and the armor being built, and that lane has actually stabilized pretty decently for Tadachi.
Yeah, he's still down a bit of CS. After this wave evens up, it'll probably be about 7 to 10.
He's been about even actually,
Yeah.
from what I've seen when the lane is even out.
Which
Ooh,
is, ooh, very nice engage coming in from the Diana, but the Moonfall was a little bit early and ZFG was able to rift walk away. Meanwhile,
good
bot
time.
side, though, Root lands onto the Jing. She has to use the, I almost said Ignite, Summoner Heal on the Flash to get out. And, Proto Baggins currently, really wants to get out of the Shire relatively soon. By that I mean rotate mid lane. Has a significant CS lead in this bottom side. About 20 CS up
That one
on
was a
Persona.
stretch.
You know, I'm just saying, you know, go for the early mid game. You have team comp that works very
Nice
well
bounce.
with it. You still have to deal with ZFG. Nice flash over to get onto Vapor. And despite the flash, still taken down. Meanwhile, ZFG almost solo killed, but the Hecarim's there in time, and ZFG falls. Or, excuse me, gets the kill onto Yurts.
Yeah, both junglers there making really good calls. The Gnar had just transformed back into mini Gnar, so even throughout that fight was not building rage. There was no risk of trying to get too deep in and getting Gnar'd into a wall and turned around. Meanwhile, in that mid lane, the onslaught of shadows specifically to force Yurts back away from the Kassadin and keep his mid laner safe, that was super well done. And that is a really, really good just heads up play on how to use your ult to the maximum effectiveness.
Meantime, though, taking a look at build paths, ZFG actually going for the Archangel's Rush. As we see the itemization going towards that. I mean, obviously, you can technically... No,
I
you actually
don't
can't
think
build
Team
Night Harvest
builds out
out
of
of those
that.
items. It is just the
Yeah.
Archangel's Rush.
No, Lost
So-
Chapter does not go into Archangels anymore.
Wait, I thought... What? No, I'm fairly
believe
certain
it
it
does.
does.
I
It
don't
does.
believe that it does. But
Can we get our producer to tell us it does not?
Yeah.
Well, I am dumb.
Here, Finnick, you gotta trust me on this.
Look, I'm a mid laner. I play Bird. You're right. It's tier. It's tier plus. It's tier plus Sapphire Crystal plus Large Rod. I am so dumb. All right, I play a hero. I play a champion that builds that item. I am so.
I'm a support player and I know this. Come on.
You know, sometimes you gotta treat yourself. Wait, there's no Ivern in this game.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so this is going to be the Everfrost that's been rising in popularity. With specifically, Kassadin was building this before the buffs to it, but with the buffs, it has made Kassadin even more of a strong pick. Basically, Kassadin can just leap forward, root somebody in place, and have the rest of the team run them down. He becomes not just a strong burst assassin type of character, but a form of engage almost similar to a Lissandra.
yeah, but at the same time, it's a very good disengage tool as well.
Yes.
That's why a lot of control mages have picked it up. Specifically for that disengage, just kind of against assassins, right? You'll see the Everfrost being picked up on Anivia or Oriana's, right? People who don't want to get up there close and personal. Same time, though, Takeji looking at mid. Tries to find some damage on... Oh, no! Yurts dodged out by ZFG with a nice Rift Walk. But now, in trouble in a 1v2. Rift walking out of the way. Gnar roaming down. Dochi is around. Micro silence onto JPQ.
No Cho'Gath to help.
Now here comes Vapor. Back in goes ZFG. Goodbye, Graves, and Yurts finds one full. Great heads-up ultimate from Proto Baggins to even that fight. Would have been a 1-for-2 in favor of Adobe Aftershock effects if it wasn't for that. Great communication coming in from Qualia.
Yeah, Qualia basically calling, saying like they are going to be low up here, launch the Jinx rocket in this fight, especially because Vapor was going to be looking to try and get that Gnar ultimate down if he'd survived long enough. So they were sticking close to that wall. They weren't going to try and move away from that. But yeah, the burst damage not there yet from ZFG to be able to close that fight before the damage came through.
Oh, here comes the Thresh. They're still able to get the Dragon, so Lola Quinn on
Tadochi.
Yate, but Tadochi's around. The stun lands, Yate goes down, but Tadochi gets the Noms onto Soliloquin. Here comes Proto Baggins, not excited at the moment. Onslaught of Shadows into the backside. They're able to get one, but now here comes JPQ. He's trying to get the damage in, but the Jinx is already dead, and now Yeats is around. He wants to get damage onto Keji, but I don't know if they can. Rift walk forward. It's on a JPQ. JPQ down to 100 health. Here comes Tadechi into the back line, and a triple kill for Takeji, and Yeats not long for the world, trying to dive back in onto Cho. Lazy, but taken down finally by the Tristana. And a 4-4-0 in favor of Adobe Aftershock effects. Make that, I believe, an unofficial ace, actually, as Liate has respawned.
Yeah, that fight just did not go well there. Qualia basically just going in 2 at a time consistently there. Initially, the Thresh going in, there was no backup. The TP had not finished yet, so Liate was just basically tanking for nothing and had no opportunity to be able to get that dragon. By the time Tadochi came in, Thresh was already too low, and yes, they did get the feast on the Morgana, but after that, it was just constantly 2 people fighting 3 or 4, and this Hecarim was just bouncing in and out of the fight and never dying.
Here's the level 11 breakpoint we were talking about early game. ZFG opting not to go for the kill, instead focusing on the objective. First tower actually taken after the 14-minute mark. A little bit of an oddity this time or this year, but at the same time, Rift Herald actually was not taken.
Yeah, I do want a quick mention too. Tadochi is actually maxing the silence first. I don't think this is bad to do in this kind of a matchup. If you're really just worried about dying and struggling, you can just farm with the silence, stay alive, and specifically to help out the team with this Kassadin, that silence is going to pay dividends in team fights once Tadochi actually shows up for them.
Yeah, meanwhile, though, in the mid lane, ZFG on that level 11 breakpoint currently. Losing out on some of these trades a bit. We'll see once the Everfrost comes in, he'll start winning out on those, as it looks like the Night Harvester from Yurts. Soliloquin flashing in. Ends up popping the ultimate. No stuns, though, and the play comes back in. Cho lazy, forced the rocket jump out. Proto Baggins is excited, but can't really dive under the tower at the moment, as Soliloquin is dead. Meanwhile, mid lane, JPQ half track, trying to force ZFG back. Hecarim's down bot, maybe looks for a lane gank here, but the lane's pushing. I don't think they're going to go for it.
Yeah, unfortunately, they're not getting the stopwatch off in time.
In. Here comes Takeji. Finds the Onslaught of Shadows. Rocket jump in. Proto Baggins takes the lantern, but he's got a bomb on him. Takeji on a rampage. And here comes the reset. Now onto Liate. Down to about 150 health. Not donating it over to the Tristana. Scumbag jungler, as Vapor is mega in the mid lane.
Yeah, that one absolutely could have been donated. The bomb was almost assuredly going to get the kill, and even if it wasn't, you could just wait for it to pop and then use the Q afterwards. So I get that Takeji wants it, but this Tristana kind of really would enjoy having a little bit more gold.
Meantime, though, it's actually Kraken Slayer coming in from Proto Baggins instead of the Shield Bow, which I think both of us were expecting to happen here. JPQ half track going for the more common Gale Force. I don't. Ooh, nice super mega death rocket.
Oh my god!
Like that was just a read of a lifetime. Like, Jeebus.
Yeah, because the vision died. The vision died on that before the back, I think, would have started. They may have seen just the tail, just like the very start of that back there, which I mean, if that was the case, that's still like a heads up play to watch around the map and be ready to toss that ultimate. And that is kind of why this Jinx is 3-2 right now. Two of these kills have been just cross the map super mega death rockets that have allowed her to really pull this lead ahead. And I mean, also credit to Liate. In lane has been hitting so many great hooks in a lane that really you shouldn't ever have the opportunity to. So this Jinx is really going to start to get online. You can see the Zeal sitting in the pocket. The big thing you're waiting for now is that Hurricane, going to be very, very hard to deal with in these team fights if everyone's grouped up.
Speaking of grouping up for a team fight, Dragon spawning in 14 seconds. Qualia having the inside track here.
No TP on Cho'Gath here.
Yeah, this could be very interesting. We see ZFG over the wall here. Takeji in with the onslaught of shadows. He doesn't get on a Proto Baggins. But guess who does? It's the man with the Everfrost. He's able to get the silence down as Yeats goes way too far into the backline. Vapor picking up the kill as Proto Baggins is able to tighten out of the way. ZFG Rift walking forward, taking out a half health by JPQ as Vapor finds Boomerang down. Qualia not going to look for a repeat of the last Dragon here and get to see this one over to ADBE Aftershock Effects, their second of the game. The Soul will be Mountain this particular time around. Super Mega Death Rocket unable to get the steal.
Yeah, the big thing there was that ZFG did not even really have the probability to kill anybody that high. Because ZFG was like a third mana. And there wasn't going to be a lot of resets happening there. If the R's kept going down, Kassadin was going to run out of mana really fast. However, just the threat of the Kassadin showing up on that backside and hitting the Everfrost and the Jinx forced everybody else back to protect Proto Baggins. Meanwhile, Yurts was already way too deep and said, like, guys, where are you going? Like, we need to go on this, because it was a really good Diana ultimate. The Moonfall hit so many people and dropped a lot of people low, but because everybody freaked out and ran back to protect the Jinx, the rest of that team fight just never really happened. So really, really good from ZFG. That's kind of one of those plays that doesn't show up on the stats, but really does a huge, huge impact in terms of creating a lead for your team.
Speaking of impact, Tadochi on the Cho'Gath here. It was joke about impact. Champion pool. Anyway, Takeji.
You mean the guy who's been playing Renekton this whole season?
You know, it's a joke about his champion pool before this season. Regardless, currently sitting about 2,000 gold down on the Gnar. This is pretty much all kill participation gold and towers, as he is only about 15 CS down. But, you know, only one kill to the Gnars too. That's another 300 gold plus 100 from the 2 assists. Taking into account the first tower and all the plates and stuff, it makes sense. CFG forced the flash, though. I honestly don't think that one was forced, as much as I just said forced to flash. Could have probably gotten out with the second rift block, but better safe than sorry, I always say. Invade coming out front side, though.
I think that would have, because that also, I believe, has a slow effect on it. It would have basically allowed, yeah, it slows them by 50%, so it would have allowed for the rest of the team to follow up. And this Jinx is definitely capable of running them down. You can see ZFG can't use that Rift Walk super often here. The amount of mana that this Kassadin is sitting on, not a super high amount right now. And basically ZFG is relying on trying to get some of those resets off of kills or assists.
Meanwhile, though, Yeats. I keep saying Yeats, it's Yeerts.
Well, he's yeeted back to the fountain.
Exactly. Hey, that's my job.
Well, too bad. We're too slow on the draw.
Well, play who isn't too slow on the draw here. It's Chalazy, actually. Silently 2-0 and 8, using the bomb to take down that tower, trading the bot lane T1 for the mid tower, but
if you're saying too slow on the draw, you can't then stall on the joke. That kind of is just
I said he wasn't too
the
slow
antithesis. You're like, too slow on the draw. You got to be quick on this Finnick. Let's go.
You know, I was gonna say Graves, but honestly, they tried accelerating the game, but I think all the momentum stopped around that first dragon, and now Qualia just seems lost.
They
Like,
still
it's
have the Jinx. The Jinx is doing well. I think the Jinx is really just kind of the win condition right now, which kind of shows like with how much they panicked on that Cassidin coming around the backside there. If Jinx is left alone and capable, left to basically put out some damage, and that they can keep this Cassidin from at least blowing her up initially, I think this Jinx will start to pop off and be a problem because the Hecarim is not going to. This is not the full tank build Hecarim that is that has been popular as of late. This is the Divine Sunderer. The Gnar is really only going to be tanky in the Mega Gnar form, so not always. And then you have the Cassidin, who, like I said, if you can't pop the Jinx, she can possibly turn things around. I'd like to see a Bloodthirster coming in soon for the Jinx, because that will give a lot of in-fight survivability to kite out this Cassidin.
Well, speaking of the Cassidin, ZFG in trouble down on the bottom side here. JPQ half track, trying to keep him away. Dragon spawning in 17 seconds. Qualia is looking like they don't want to see this one away, but they have to be very careful. They don't have the vision priority they had in the last fight. And Takeji,
that chunk on the Cassidin. That chunk on the Cassidin is really, really important, though. ZFG has to be very careful if he engages. If this was a full health Cassidin, you could dive on the Jinx right now. But because ZFG is half health, half mana,
he goes for Proto Baggins, nearly gets the execute, but here comes Akram. Flash misses over the wall, Takeji goes dominating. Now, it comes to Diana, ult on the 4, they get the damage down onto the animated carry, but a beautiful Gnar ends up picking up the rest of the kills for the team. Vapor trying to go rampant in these fights as a shutdown finally lands for JPQ half track. The damage is there onto Dodochi, but they trade it back onto the Gnar in the meantime. It's now 2v2, Soliloquent in trouble. Here it comes, Takeji able to pick up the kill onto the Diana, and it's a 4 for 3 in that dragon fight. But now JPQ half track in a 1v1, down a level, ends up getting one, dashing over the wall. Here comes Takeji now, looking for follow-up, but it will fizzle out. Qualia barely staying alive that fight, end up losing the fight 4-3, but honestly, you take that because there is no objective taken. Except, actually, Qualia ended up getting that one down. Never mind.
Yeah, they did pick up the dragon there, while Takeji was really focused on getting that Jinx down. The smite came through from JPQ. They picked up the dragon. And while this Diana is 1-7, I don't think that actively portrays how well Yurts is playing. I think there's been a lot of focus on this Diana, and Yurts has hit a lot of really good ultimates. Like, that fight specifically is... That Moonfall is why they were able to go so even in that fight, despite losing the Jinx very early on. Yurts hitting a huge Moonfall, and yes, they got stunned after that. Soliloquent and Soliloquent and Vapor was like a great ultimate combo, but JPQ survived through all of that and became that secondary carry that this Graves is meant to be. As long as both Jinx and Graves don't go down in a fight, there's still the opportunity to pump out some DPS to close out a fight.
As you were kind of mentioning, towards BT might be the next item on the dock of the Jinx, but hold that thought. In the top lane, JPQ taken down, shut down gold, goes over to Takeji as the TP comes in from ZFG. Dodochi in trouble, Nard up against the wall, but he is not stunned as the Super Mega Death Rocket misses. Chalazy trying to get damage out as Chidochi down to 300 health! Vapor picks up that kill, now Chalazy with the rocket jump reset, jumped in, but has to flash out of the way. The 2 for 0 in the top lane, and they will take their prize, which is, of course, Baron Nashor. They decide to, maybe. Proto Baggins, though. He's very hungry, but now he's split up from the Thresh. No! Rooted up! Take it down to Takeji! Legendary, and that is for sure Baron Nashor going over to Adobe Aftershock effects, excuse me.
That one is...
Tristana.
Yeah, that one is a bit unfortunate there. The fight basically all went on while Proto Baggins was still in base, and that extra damage was not there. On top of that, JPQ got chunked out super early in that fight and then ended up falling. So basically both of those carries were not able to participate, and that is why so much damage was able to come down without retaliation. Then you look at afterwards, Proto Baggins trying to move forward and watch them as they were going towards the Baron, see if there was something that could be done. unfortunately did go a little bit too far forward, and during the retreat path went the wrong way, did not have the ability to get back over to the thresh. The lantern went in a spot that basically forced her to walk into that dark binding and costed a lot of gold, costed the Baron, and now we could see the possibility of the base cracking open.
On top of that, ZFG level 15, almost to the level 16 inevitability factor. As we see another fight break out bottom side, JPQ should end up dying as ZFG picks up the kill. Hook barely short onto ZFG there. Meantime,
yeah,
though,
this is starting to look like an inevitability here. The Kassadin starting to really be a problem here, and the catchouts are becoming more and more consistent. The team's just not grouping up in a way that has been effective because of how their lanes have just kind of worked out. A lot of times these carries are trying to farm up these side lanes, and there's a lot of really good punishes from ADBE to say like, all right, they're stuck farming these bot waves that are just kind of like stacked up and have to be dealt with. We can engage on another side of the map while we have the team advantage.
you know, speaking of inevitability, I mean, he's got the time stone already in that stopwatch. Soul Stone in the Dark Seal, or
You're really
components
rushing these today.
Stone. No, I mean, but look, you know, it is an inevitability factor. He is inevitable, and he has. Look,
it's not a stone. Right. It's
okay, you know what? He still is Thanos in my eyes. All right, 4 seconds left for this dragon. I think Qualia needs to seed this one over. They're down too much gold to really contest.
Yeah, this isn't Soul.
Down. It's not Soul.
Soul. You don't care too much about it. You might, yeah, like try and go for maybe a steal like that, but don't put yourself in a position where you put yourself in the opportunity to fight, especially with the Baron being still on ADBE right now. You don't want to deal with that. You want to just farm up. Let this Jinx get her third item. If Jinx is able to get that third item, maybe these fights and catchouts don't kill her immediately and she can still participate.
Well, Chalazy, though, even in gold with the Jinx at the moment, or with Proto Baggins, just due to the sheer amount of KP and turrets being taken, flash over the wall goes, I believe that was Soliloquin.
Yeah.
Gnar split pushing, they have the 1-3-1 setup. A little bit later than I expected this game, if I'm being honest, but still keep the 1-3-1 going. They make the rotation onto the Gnar, flashes out. They force a Gnar flash, but they will end up losing this mid tower for it because they rotated everyone over. That's kind of the danger of not really having someone to match the Gnar. I mean, Todochi, you mentioned, should have been able to do that on his own, but unfortunately he's just way too far behind at this point, about 3,000 down on this Gnar.
Gonna get low.
Oh, double root in. Finds the hook into the flay. Chalazy taken down. Todochi with the kill. JPQ on the flank now. Looking for ZFG and Soliloquin. Proto Baggins picks up the kill with the super mega death rocket. Takeji on the side. And we see the Gnar pushing it on the bot lane. This is split push executed to near perfection. Yes, they lose 2 members of their team, but at the same time, they're getting objectives across the map. Forcing these rotations is so important because these backs are happening. Takeji and ZFG see it going down to find the Shogath of Todochi. Gets the silence, still knocks back in. ZFG around, gets the micro silence. Not sure about that onslaught of shadows though, as Todochi finally gets taken out by Takeji.
Yeah, probably not needed, but I think they just wanted to make sure that Shogath could not walk any closer to the base. Not knowing who was possibly walking up, you don't want to run the risk of over chasing. Is already about a third of the way back off cooldown, so I mean, with the reset coming at the same time, I think that pretty much just works out. Got to be a solid kill once again, given over, and now 11-1 on this Hecarim. This is a very scary horseman.
Indeed. At the same time, taking a look at the items, says 3 completed, going in towards the Thornmail actually for item number 4. As instead of the BT completion from Proto Baggins, it was the IE. Yes, the third item is very important in Power Spike, but you need survivability. You're not doing anything in the fights if you're already dead. I mean, going back to that point we made earlier about the shield bow, I much would have preferred it to Kraken Slayer this game on this Jinx. But, I mean, now's not the time for that. ZFG, blast comes over on JPQ, flashing forward, caught up by the Everfrost. In the meantime, we see fights breaking out in the mid lane. It's a traded jungler for AD carry as Vapor finds a three-man Gnar ultimate. Here comes the Liliquin, trying to find the ult himself, or herself, excuse me, and should find the two-man stun. ZFG and Gnar take down everyone, and Vapor gets credited with the triple kill to Jeji now. Looking for Frodo Baggins. Over the wall, the ace. Finally for ADBE Aftershock effects. TP being channeled in here. The GGs are called in the chat. Death timer's not going to line up well for Qualia, and ADBE Aftershock effects take game number 1 in a convincing fashion. Really, really strong plays. Basically, after that first dragon onwards, they kept the tempo control basically perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really well played game. The Hecarim obviously did pop off a lot. I think took a little bit too many kills for my liking, but was able to capitalize on it and make the best of that. The Kassadin obviously did. It got into the backline. There weren't a lot of points where Kassadin just hopped onto somebody and killed them, but it at the very least forced them to play respectfully and back off of fights, which then we saw in a couple of fights. This Jinx could not participate as much as you would love to see Jinx participate. Specifically, that last fight, Proto Baggins walking forward, trying to get in and help the team, but the Hecarim and the Kassadin being off on the left side basically forced Jinx to run back and not walk up to auto attack because Hecarim was just running back and forth, waiting to hop on top of her. That was basically the story of this game right now, and I don't want to say that I think Qualia played poorly, because I think they actually did hold on pretty well. There was a lot of fights where they were able to turn nothing into something, and I think they deserve a lot of credit for that. This one, I think, was a lot closer than the score really shows.
And going back to the draft, I think a point that I mentioned is you don't really have any peel for ZFG, but that went for Takeji as well.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't have any good form of peel. Yes, they have Cho'Gath as a frontliner, but Cho'Gath doesn't peel. That's not his job as a frontliner. He doesn't have any crowd control abilities that are like, here, you're with me, not with my AD carry, right?
Mm-hmm.
And thus, it creates this situation where they can just kind of blow past you. Yeah, you can silence them for a couple of seconds, but at the same time, they have the damage. They've already gone past you.
Mm-hmm.
We saw Takeji, you mentioned it. Dive, dive, dive again into that back line. ZFG doing the same thing. Not necessarily frontal assault diving, but more coming in with these flanks. And had a lot of impact in these fights, even when his KP score is much lower than that of Takeji, just by his presence, just by the threat. Even if he didn't get the kill,
Yeah.
he caused everyone from Qualia to say, "That's the Kassadin, go get the Kassadin." And it just didn't work out for them. And I think it started in the draft. I think outside of that, lanes, they won bottom lane. They had strong presence from the Graves. Yurts did very admirably considering the rank difference there as well. In no small part thanks to JPQ half track, but you have to give credit to Yurts to actually make that happen. Really, I think it just boils down to just draft a little bit smarter against the enemy team comp, and perhaps we'll go on to a game 3.
Yeah. I think ultimately the big thing Qualia did not take into account was like, oh, Jinx is not going to die to the Kassadin. Like that, they kind of realized that Jinx won't just get blown up by this Kassadin or the Hecarim immediately. She'll survive, but what they didn't account for was the fact that she might be too low to actually participate in these fights despite living through that. And that really kind of cost them a lot in these fights.
That being said, though, we're going to take it to a quick break as we get ready to go for the second game of the series. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more Corporate Esports Association League of Legends Week 4 action. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and bees of all ages, welcome back to the Corporate Esports Association Week 4 matchup between Adobe Aftershock Effects and Qualia. My name is Fennec, joined on the desk today, as always, by the ever lovely, effervescent, and ever beautiful Thousand Eyes. How are you doing as we get ready to go with Game 2 of this best of 3 series?
I'm flattered, first of all, but I am very excited because this game one was really, honestly, really solid. I think from both teams, there were a couple of small mistakes that I think Adobe can stitch up and come back to see if this goes to a game three. I think there's a very real possibility that we could see Adobe pull a very similar type of lead in game one, in game two, and take us all the way to the game three finisher.
Uh, just a slight correction there. Adobe won game number 1. I think you're talking about Qualia, who's now on the red
Qualia.
side.
Yes, I
Swain being
am.
mid away from the bot lane, though, in the meantime.
God, I forgot the teams switch sides between games sometimes, and yeah, Adobe gonna be on the blue side this time around. Gonna be taking away the Swain, the Karthus, looking at very similar bands. Oh wait, nope, gonna switch it up for the Hecarim rather, and I think that is actually a really good call. Sometimes KDA does not tell the whole story of which player was really carrying the team. Sometimes it does though, and it was definitely a lot of the Hecarim causing pain for Adobe.
Yeah, in the meantime, though, Shaco and Morgana being banned out, so they keep the Seraphine and LeBlanc available for Qualia if they want to take those compared to last game's bans, and actually Graves also being banned out by Qualia. So all 3 of the highest priority junglers are banned away as far as meta junglers go. However, Karthus and Nidalee are both available for Adobe After Effects if they want it. Instead, opting to take the Taric, most likely Taric support.
This is a pick that Jay Bagger does have as far as a comfort pick. I'm really surprised to see it being prioritized so heavily. I don't think Qualia really are gonna ever look to take that Taric away, and I think there's other types of picks. You could take a jungler first and try and get one of these power picks that are still available. The Kha'Zix is still on there. There's a lot of different kinds of picks that you could pick up. The Karthus, which was banned away in game one by Qualia, is now available and will go through. Most likely going to be going into that jungle, but can be flexed into mid lane possibly.
I mean, based on play rates, I don't think he's really flex mid all that much any more
Yeah,
often. And you actually touched on a point we didn't really bring up there. Jay Banger actually now going to be subbing in that support role for the side of Adobe Aftershock Effects, taking the place of Soliloquent. So a little bit of swapping around as we do. In the meantime, though, Tristana, Thresh, and Nidalee taken up by Qualia. So, what strong side top laner is Qualia playing today?
that really is the question of the day here. Uh, I don't know entirely what they want to go for, Tadochi. Or yeah, sorry. The I want to see a little bit more aggression here. I want to see a little bit more aggression from Adobe. I want to see Qualia maybe have something that can punish a little bit harder, because I think the Cho'Gath actually did not get super punished. I think the issue more was the Cho'Gath did not provide to Qualia's team composition that what they needed to provide.
Oh,
The
well,
Renekton here, though, I like this. This is going to be the blind pick here. Adobe have the opportunity to counter this, but Renekton does not really have a whole lot of great early game counters.
I mean, the answer is Shen, but it's a neutralization lane.
Hmm.
I don't necessarily like Cho'Gath. I understand why. Renekton doesn't really scale that well into the late game. Cho'Gath actually can match the split push of a Renekton much more effectively than he can for a Gnar. And yeah, I don't hate it. I think Shen is the more classical answer here. But at the same time, it can be very interesting to see how that plays out. In the meantime, though, Adobe hovering the Corki for the mid lane pick, and with the counter Qualia, I want to see uh, I think I want to see something a little bit less hyphy than the Diana. I think it was played decently well last game. Maybe something a little bit safer, a little bit more comfort oriented this time around. Oriana's already been banned away, but if you want to pick Syndra, you can. Anivia is not bad here either if you want to give yourself an extra late game option.
Yeah, we'll have to see here. Qualia generally run sorry, Qualia running a lot of aggressive
Oh,
types of mids. We've got the LeBlanc, the Fizz, the Diana is on that list there and will be picked up once again. So taking this, I think this works a little better than that Kassadin lane matchup because there's always
yeah.
the kill potential that Diana has on the Corki. And even that level 6 point from the Corki is not like a huge can a huge kind of negation there. Diana gets a huge boost with that ultimate, while Corki just gets a little bit more poke in his kit. So I think the Diana works a lot better here. I think Qualia's team composition is a lot less front to back and a lot more kind of we want to go all in on you. We want to just fight you and beat you up and jump you. Adobe, on the other hand, what does really worry me, Adobe, not only do they have a double carry composition with a Taric that really just allows for a lot of inherent peel and survivability with the ultimate, but you've also got the Karthus. And Karthus with a Taric ultimate on him is terrifying because he can just basically run at you. He already wants to run super deep in your team and basically die there. Now he can position himself exactly where he wants to be with the extra invulnerability time.
Yeah, that said, I think this Diana. I mean, so I don't think it's Diana. It's Qualia once again going very hard into that backline dive as you mentioned, and you mentioned the peel coming out from Adobe. Uh, I guess my biggest concern in the team fights for both these teams is, uh,
I mean,
yeah, I
okay,
mean,
so
I had,
I think Qualia, like last time, they kind of went half and half. They had like a
yeah,
couple people diving the Thresh, the
they
Cho'Gath, and
they've both
Diana.
had
They wanted to just run at people and they wanted to be in the middle of the fight, whereas Jinx wanted to stay back and not be alone. This time
yeah.
around, you have the Tristana. Tristana can jump into the fight with that rest of the team and can keep herself alive pretty, in a self sufficient type of fashion. So
It's
I
just
think overall, this
it,
just works better.
it's just so hard to dive the Adobe comp though. Like you already mentioned the Taric ultimate,
Hmm.
but also like Killer Instinct is a self peel as well as an engage. I mean Cho'Gath isn't a peeling tank. We already mentioned that, right? But you have
Yeah.
a lot of self peel on the Corki, on the Kai'Sa. You have Taric, who not only peels the ultimate, but also the use of. I mean, it's not reliable peel, but the use of the Starlight's touch is still peel.
Hmm.
Um, and when you have a Karthus who is going to be playing a little bit far forward in these fights, it can get a little bit scarier for Qualia, right? Because once
Hmm.
Renekton dives in, Karthus can find his way onto the Tristana, who, still, yes, dives in, but isn't point blank on the enemy Kai'Sa.
Yeah.
And it can turn very quickly in Adobe's favor. I think I like Adobe's drafts a little bit more this game.
Yes, okay. To be clear, I like Adobe's draft more this game as well as last game. I think Qualia's draft is better this time around than
Yeah.
it was in game one. I think this is an improvement. I think this composition has a little bit more focus on what it wants to do. The Tristana, though like Tristana can jump in and you know go in with the rest of the team, Tristana also can just kite back and use her abilities to peel for herself. She can just stay out of the fight and just run back and try and stay alive in that way. So there's a little bit of flexibility in that type of style of play. Meanwhile, I think the biggest question that Qualia have to face here is can they engage, get the Taric ultimate out, and disengage? Because or go in on somebody and force the Taric ult in a non-essential situation or force it in a way that is not just ideal. Because if they wait for these 5v5 team fights to then engage, they're going to lose every single one of them. They need to get these important cooldowns down first and then go for these objective fights where they have everybody together or try and catch somebody out before they're ready.
Yeah, and that pick potential is something that you want to kind of focus on a handful of champions from Qualia. I think your biggest pickers are always going to be the Nidalee, the Thresh, and the Renekton, just due to the nature of those champions. And on the meantime, like who is your pick target from Adobe? Who are you trying to catch out the most on these rotations?
Mhm.
I'm gonna use on the Corki. Actually,
Mm,
is your pick
I
target?
I think it is very situational on who is playing the most careless. I think, you're looking at it and Kaisa, Karthus, Corki, those are the big ticket grabs that you'd like to get. I think even if it is just the Taric, if you can engage on the Taric, get the ultimate out, and the rest of the team isn't there, that is a huge win. But other than that, yeah, like you'd really like to get this Karthus down first before a fight happens. Let him die and not make any use of his passive or his ultimate. If you catch him in the middle of a fight, you're stuck in a hard situation. Even if you do know what it is, like even if you have an idea of what you'd like to do, everybody has to be on the same page of, okay, screw it, we're going to keep going into Karthus, or, okay, we got the Karthus pick, we need to back out and let him actually die so we don't take just so much free damage.
Yeah, the file is a balanced ability, as well as just the Death Defy passive. But leaving it at that, I think we both said we favor the Adobe Aftershock effects draft. We laid out Qualia's win condition, right, with these picks. I mean, also, they have a strong 1-4 split push in the Renekton, or 1-3-1 with the Renekton Diana. Adobe Aftershock effects, what is their win condition this game?
I mean, it's basically team fighting. They want to get the ultimates down together. They want to use the Taric ult to just run at people and let their carries run with impunity and not have to worry about all this pick damage here. If they engage 5v5 as a unit and it is not somebody getting caught out that they have to use that Taric ultimate, that is a huge boon for them and will allow them to just basically deathball composition into these objectives.
I want to see objective fights happen every single one of these objectives this game. I think Adobe, as you mentioned, wants to find the fights around the 5v5 objectives, but also like Qualia, if they can find a pick, they can force a 4v5 around these dragons. Early dragon priority, I think, should benefit the Nidalee composition ever so slightly. However, I think it's just going to be very important to watch, right? See how these jungles pass, see how they decide to go for these dragons. Nidalee can't solo the dragon as early as Karthus, but at the same time, we look at who's got lane priority bot side. It will be Qualia. We're onto the Rift now. Adobe Aftershock effects on the blue side, Qualia on the red side. And hopefully we see something funky level 1, as we do have a Taric, but perhaps not.
I mean, okay, yes, you have the Taric, but you also have to think about, like, what is the rest of the team looking like? And Tristana with Hail of Blades level 1 is scary. The Thresh level 1 can be very scary. Nidalee technically has 2 abilities, so that is also a little bit sketch. Meanwhile, you got the Corki poke, you got the Kaisa, who's okay level 1. Karthus can be great level 1, but it's really dependent on
With
can he
this,
actually hit those defiles.
yeah, J
J-Banger
Banger.
just...
Oh, never mind. Goodbye. First blood going over to Liata, not necessarily who you want that to go over to, but at the same time, you lose the support, you give a kill over to the enemy support. It's fine enough for Adobe Aftershock effects, despite, losing out on that. There'll be 500 gold down to start off, but once again, like, Tristana's only 50 gold up, so does that really matter? No, not at all.
I mean, that does help a lot as far as getting the support item online faster. One of the biggest things that you look at in supports is that they do not get a lot of gold or items. So any distance that you do create from a support, if it is a first blood gold, that is a huge advantage relative to the amount of gold that supports usually get. That means the locket will come on a good bit faster than Terex. Meanwhile, it also means that Takeji is going to be basically known where he's going. He's a known quantity right now, and that allows a lot of flexibility for what JPQ wants to do as far as this pathing goes. I do want to point out that Takeji has opted... Oh, as we got a fight, actually.
Well, 2-man stun from J Banger, though. Should be enough to dissipate any follow-up. Level 2 also going to advantage Qualia, as they got the
Yeah.
XP there. I forgot about that as well.
Yeah, but I think, honestly, importantly is going to be Takeji does not have the flash. Running the exhaust, this is a thing that some Karthus players will do because you're not really going to want to you're not going to be using flash defensively ever on Karthus. Ideally, what you're going to do is just run at people, run them down, and having the duel potential. Karthus, when you solo hit people with the Defile, does a lot more damage. So you can actually duel people in the early game really well. If you have that exhaust on them, you're not taking as much damage. They're so much easier to hit with the Qs, and the fighting potential in the early game is really, really good, especially when you have Nidalee, who is super strong at trying to invade people and blow them up.
CFG, meanwhile, flashing out of the way of the Diana. Definitely a strong matchup for the Diana. I wasn't expecting them to do this again, but as you kind of mentioned, champ pool-wise, you know, favoring stuff like LeBlanc, Diana Fizz. Who am I to judge? I'm a control mage player, and by control mage player, I mean Anivia. Anyways.
Control mage player that doesn't know what tier builds out of.
Yeah, you know, you meant Archangel Staff, and
Tier
also...
builds into, sorry.
Look, all right? They've changed Archangel Staff recipes like 3 times in the last 3 years. Like, give me a break. Can't you actually make it a level?
That's not a year. That's not a lot.
Look, why change the build path? Why remove Catalyst from the game? Can we talk about the removal of Catalyst and the removal of Roa? Solo lane Swain is hurting so much because of that.
I mean,
AP Cho'Gath is hurting so much because of that.
That one I'm okay with hurting. Screw that. AP Cho'Gath is a menace and does not deserve to exist in the game. Tank Cho'Gath is superior.
But yeah, solo lane Swain, like, rip. Oh, ZFG just chunked out a lot there. Electrocute, doing quite a bit of damage there for years. But ZFG actually has a slight farm advantage, so we can probably take him back into cheater recall if he really wants to on this wave. It's not really a cheater recall, it's just a normal recall. And he's got the call as well, so even if he ends up slightly behind in XP, we'll have the higher gold at the end of the day. Slice and dice on the Vapor top side. You can't really dive this at level 4. Yeah, extremely forced. And they're fighting in the minion wave, so IPQ, half track, is taking out about 150 health there, and not really off Vapor, it's just off that minion wave. I don't like that gank at all.
Yeah, that was a really forced gank there. It was basically like GPQ did not want to go back and try and farm there, was up there, wanted to try and get something done before leaving, and unfortunately just kind of actually screws over his own laner there. The wave doing a lot of damage here to Tatochi, and tanking a tower shot also makes it rough. So I think the best thing to do there would have been just back in that river bush, make sure that Karthus was not around to gank the Renekton and allow him to scale up.
So we mentioned the early dragon control, or I did in draft, right? Adobe Aftershock effects. Currently holding the dragon controls, it spawned about 33 seconds ago, but they haven't gone in with it on the Karthus quite yet. I believe he takes that solo at level 5, if I'm not mistaken. Is when he's able to do that, but
technically, yes, it is very sketchy to do because of how squishy Karthus can be.
I saw from Yurts, but ZFG is already level 6.
Ooh, got a little too close to the tower.
Unable to find the spear, and flash forward! Valkyrie away. IPQ really wanting to get these kills early, but just hasn't found it. And in fact, the 500 gold lead that we got from that level 1 has now gone down to 100 gold. And this is off just farming advantages in pretty much all these lanes at the moment. Plus, the increased proximity of JPQ has really kind of been to the detriment. Karthus just able to power farm up to that level 6 point. And once he has level 6, well, it doesn't matter if he hasn't ganked early, because now he can gank at any time.
Yeah, you always have to be aware when you get low health in lane, because even if you're not going to get full comboed by your lane opponent, with a Karthus ult, that can just fast track him in terms of getting online. What does really concern me the most about this early game here, though, is the fact that Tatochi is so far behind on this Renekton here. Really struggling in terms of farm. That is not how that lane is meant to be going at this point. This should definitely be a Renekton favored matchup, but that early gank there really seems to have stalled out the possibilities of pushing that there, as the Nidalee trap actually going to help Karthus take this a little faster.
Thanks for the leash, Nidalee.
Yep.
In the meantime, though, Raptors being stolen away from the Karthus. He has level 6, though. ZFG is looking around. Still
This could be a fight.
Nature. Perhaps put the wall down. Eurus, fallen Eurus.
Still is Moonfall.
What the heck? In the meantime, though, they just kind of are staring at each other or not doing anything. Perhaps actually looking for this dragon priority, and we see that actually both things come out. They want to start the dragon, but they can't actually do it with the Karthus there, especially as Vapor gets some trades on Shidochi. We'll keep an eye on that Drake, though, in the meantime.
Beast is almost available for Viper there, and that is really going to get scary.
Oh, good flashing out of the Moonfall.
Yeah,
really good Moonfall.
Uh-oh, Tadochi needs to be
Oh, flashing! There's the feast.
Yep, goodbye. No respect of the possibility of the all-in from the Cho'Gath. And that lane has now gone completely off the rails. Tadochi is basically just screwed. Takechi, though, is not having a good time against this Nidalee. That actually should open up the dragon possibility here. Vapor does not have the teleport available, so cannot show up to the fight. Neither does Tadochi, though. But with the Karthus back, they know Karthus back right now. They're taking the red buff there. And Chilese and Chebanger are aware of this, but ultimately, like, this could have turned into, I think, the first dragon with the bot lane priority that they have.
Well, they found a really good hook on a Chebanger. Unfortunately,
nice rocket
Proto Baggin, stunned up, but a buffered rocket jump to stay alive there. As recalls,
Corky has package right now. He is looking to come down to the spot side.
Maybe, but decides to go back towards mid lane. Something I'd like to point out, last game, even Qualia had very good vision control over these early dragons before they ended up losing. What was that package? Never mind. Just package getting in the lane, I guess. But at the same time, they weren't really able to grab the early dragons, right? They had good vision control, but they just didn't pull the trigger at the right times. And we're seeing that again this game, perhaps. Something they need to work on in practice. They force the Taric ultimate out in the meantime.
Back out.
A bit of trouble. Yeah. Proto Baggins getting some damage on the Chilese. Hill Blade proc helping out there. And you gotta be careful about this just not fresh. Just
that play right there, right? Oh, we'll talk about it in a sec.
Here's just dead here. Despite using the Moonfall, there's just too much damage coming up from the Defile, and ZFG ends up picking up the kill. And a great exhaust, as you mentioned.
Yeah, Takechi using the exhaust, very good against Diana specifically because the Moonfall damage is very deliberately delayed. ZFG, a little low, but does have a good couple of boys in front of him to protect him. Proto Baggins, though, looking to get in.
The rock jump over. Here comes the Joji with the Dominus. ZFG finally taken down. That one with the Q as Proto Baggins goes ahead and rocket jumps back onto Takechi, but Takechi's not having any of it, and neither is Vapor for the meantime. Now Proto Baggins actually zoned out from the rest of the team. Takechi pops the Defile, jump in from JPQ half track, but here comes the Requiem. Goodbye, Nidalee. And Vapor around to Tadochi. Proto Baggins down to 200 health, but stays alive on the Tristana. Oh, and 3, getting the kill participation on 100% of kills this game.
Yeah, Tadochi actually kind of stealing that away from Proto Baggins there. Something about this game and stealing kills from Tristana, like, past 2 games have just been... Unfortunately, Tristana not able to be donated these kills, having them taken away, and we saw didn't play as much a big deal in the last game. I do want to quickly touch on that bot lane fight and why that was really concerning for me there. One of the things that we talked about in Champion Select was how good is the shot calling on Qualia to be able to engage, get the Taric ultimate, and back out of a fight. Because if you keep engaging on Taric, you are just wasting damage. You are pumping damage into something that means absolutely nothing. And especially at that point where it's like, okay, there's no big objective right now. We're not fighting over anything that we need to keep the lane pressure or jump in on people. What you need there is the ability to say, okay, we got the cooldown, let's back out, and then we can force a fight before that cooldown is up. And what we saw was Proto Baggins and Liate going way too deep in, continually hitting into this invulnerable champion team. And that is very concerning because what's going to happen with team fights?
Well, what's going to happen with team fights is nothing quite yet. Dragon finally taken by Qualia using what remained of their vision advantage. They kind of lost all their invasive vision there, but they still had control over the river. But their first uncontested or first proactive dragon of this series. Feels nice for them. As a hook flank combo lands. But there's the double stun, and the trade just comes back out. Bomb doesn't do enough damage on a Cho-Lazy.
Liate hitting a lot of great hooks this game, or this series rather. Just constantly just hitting them onto these characters and getting a huge lead for Proto Baggins, making sure that even in disadvantageous matchups, Proto Baggins is basically always capable of throwing down some extra damage.
World spawn top, TP coming in the meantime. Cho-Lazy ulted up by the Taric as the mid tower falls out. Well, soon to fall out, excuse me. The TP wasn't interrupted, but it was enough. Yurt comes in with the Moonfall on the 2, but there's just no follow-up damage. He doesn't have the tower. Takeji picks up the kill as Tadochi. Goodbye. Viper gets the feast down. 3-for-0 across the map. First tower taken down despite a dive bottom side. You just cannot dive a Taric lane like that. Might be able to trade this one back into BFG. Leap over the wall with Cougar form, but a knock-up lands. Flash over. Vapor here, and Takeji takes that one out with a lay waste.
That is so disappointing there. Yeah, you saw just fights happening in every single lane there, but once again, the engage was onto the Taric. The ultimate had just come back up for J-Banger and basically negated any of that pressure they had built there. Another good hook.
Oh, another hook. It's another flay, but the stuns already land. Proto Baggins gets a kill, but in comes
That's actually fine.
Yeah.
The Requiem was useless. Didn't even get the assist.
Yeah, unfortunately, J-Banger had the Ignite on and was able to take that.
Yeah, so J-Banger getting that and not actually dying to the Requiem is actually a really big deal there. That is the Requiem basically used for zero reason, not going to accomplish anything with it. And the gold from that kill, Proto Baggins picks up the kill, and then J-Banger picks it up in response. That is... honestly, you take that, especially when you're in something that has so much anti-dive as the Taric. Being able to make that work is a super big thing here. And once again, it is looking like Qualia's win condition is going to be built around this Tristana.
Oh, Yurts. What are you doing? Come on.
Yurts.
I mean, Takeji, what are you doing by diving that deep? But Yurts barely lived with a sliver of health, and now JPQ is right on that particular missile barrage. Missile barrage.
Barrage.
I don't know why I said barrage. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that at all. In the meantime, though, JPQ not having nearly the impact that they wanted this game. With this Nidalee Renekton combo, Renekton fell behind in lane 1, 2, and 0. He's not a champion this game. Nidalee very similarly down 800 gold. So, as much as I hate to say it, you put all your eggs in the early to mid basket, and you lost the early game. You're 5,000 down as we head into the mid game here. And thus, you have to wait for the Tristana to get online. Might be able to get J-Banger out, but Cosmic Radiance comes through in the nick of time, despite the Buster Shot being used.
It was so close. Oh,
very close.
So close. Yeah, just barely getting that out, but now it is down. JPQ has eyes on this Kaisa.
Ooh.
Oh. Fade away.
Dark Harvest go POP, and in fact, they find another hook. Cho-Lazy flashes out, but a little bit too late as Rocket Jump comes forward. Takeji, though, he's fine.
This is good tempo.
Here comes Gear, so trying to get damage in, unable to get the hook, but the Ignite has already landed as the turret falls to the bomb.
Yeah, one thing though that I am keeping an eye on, this is a really great tempo move here. A lot is being gained by ADBE. or sorry, by Qualia in this situation here. They're getting the tower, they're getting some kills. They forced the Taric ultimate, and then afterwards kept pushing it. And all the response was basically by everybody who had no ability to frontline, so they had to stay back and just try and stay alive and sacrifice that Taric. Leate, though, goodbye.
This one actually being donated over to Takeji. Making sure he gets those dank Dark Harvest procs. As well as even more kills. Has the Leandry's farming completed at the moment. Putting on a Blasting Wand. As should be the shield bow coming in from ZFG, as he's already got the completed Monamune.
Oh, I think he got it. Yeah. That spear got the Scuttle Crab.
Well then, vision priority. Qualia doesn't really have it at the moment, but they still have decent enough vision of the river to know if this objective is being taken, and they have Warden the Pit as well. So, you know, should be fine enough for them at the moment. But invasive vision-wise, they haven't really found anything since that initial invade. As Chilese just clears up the final ward there.
Yeah. And I'm looking at this right now, and one thing that I'm keeping an eye on, this Corki has the Manamune right now, looking for that to transform. One of the recent patch changes that has not really played a huge part in pro play as of yet is the Manamune now does less for basic attacks, or the Muramana, the fully evolved form, does less damage for auto attacks with the max mana. However, it does more with abilities. So for champions that did generally build it before, like the Ezreal or the Corki, the ones who do rely on those abilities, that is a huge buff for them. It went from 2.0% max mana extra damage to 1.5 on basic attacks and 2.7 on abilities. So that is a really nice buff for those types of champions here. And once that Muramana does transform, that is really going to be a lot of extra damage from that Corki, who's already popping people.
Indeed. While that happened, though, or while you were saying that, Qualia ended up picking up a dragon. Nice proactive fly, and in fact, they pick up Edgy as well. That down goes over to Thrash. Might be able to actually get a rat. Oh, special delivery! Here comes the cavalry! Goodbye! Nidalee and Thrash double kill for ZFG1.
Is this an opera now?
That's not my upper range, by the way. Vapor ends up picking up that kill there. Requiem was not available, but with the rest of the team there with the 3-for-1, definitely worth it for ADBE Aftershock specs. They also go ahead and grab this tower. Ocean Salt, the name of the game this time around, is the first one of those doesn't spawn for another 3 minutes 55. But until then, tempo back in ADBE Aftershock's hands.
Yep, and I mean, unfortunately, that dive did go a little bit haywire there. They got the Karthus, but afterwards, once again, they did take a little too much damage from the passive, and as well as that package coming through, basically confirmed that there was going to be no way out for the Thresh. Nidalee did burn the flash to no avail. The auto attack traveled over and killed her as well. Looking at the dragons, though, right now, the one thing that Qualia does really have going for them is they've had Dragon control this game. We mentioned game one, they had a lot of vision control around Dragon, but did not pull the trigger. This time around, they've gotten both of these dragons. They have the ability to fight these. Oh, no.
It's a good setup for the pick, however,
a little too early.
Yeah, a bit. Fully stacked Muramana now for ZFG in the meantime, as well as the Shieldbow completion. Hasn't sold the Cull quite yet. Hasn't really needed to. In the meantime, though, Yurts, JPQ half track, and they make their way top side, but
they could have gone on that.
Perhaps. I mean, these are the type of pick plays that we wanted them to see. It's just slightly miscommunicated, right? Like, if Nidalee was there probably 5-10 seconds earlier, or the Tadochi was a little bit later and trying to go in there. I think it's a different story. I think you actually end up getting the kill on the ZFG. Unfortunately, though, just the communication wasn't there. Vapor, Buster shot it away from the turret. Tanks up quite a bit of health, but he's at 1,000. He's fine.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing there was they just underestimated the amount of damage that this Corki's going to be doing right now, even against this Renekton. And this is a Renekton that is behind, which is never a thing you want to say about Renekton.
Yeah, I mean,
The
Renekton
jukes.
does not scale late. If you're not ahead, you are behind, and Vapor finally taken down here. Dochi on to Takeshi top side, but they're able to take out this top tower in
Still have Terra Cult.
do that. Proto Baggins got some damage onto Jangbanger, but he is fine. And you know, you lose your split pusher, but you gain a tower. It's the classic split push trade, and in fact, that bottom T2 very close to dying as well. So honestly, I think worth if you're a W Aftershock effects to go ahead and take the recall here, or should be doing that soon, setting up for the next dragon. As that is a soul point fight for Qualia.
Yeah, and another thing to keep in mind here is the Baron take is very, very fast for Adobe. Karthus already alone is super fast, and then you add in Corki and the Kaisa, there is so much DPS that is going to take that Baron down fast. Plus, you have a Cho'Gath for the confirm, as well as the ability to tank. This is a Baron taking machine of a composition right now, and if they leave that Baron unwarded and uncontrolled, that can very, very quickly be given away, and that is a massive tempo disadvantage that would be hard to come back from.
Yeah, and Takeshi in the meantime has the Demonic Embrace completed. So actually, here's the thing about Leandries. Next patch is no longer going to be a great item on certain champions that do damage over time. They're removing the percent magic pen per second against burning targets, which I'm actually kind of upset about. Mark Yetter, please. They pick up the kill into Diana in the meantime. Bot side might trade back on this mid lane tower, but the rotation's coming in. It's an uneven fight. And Qualia just needs to moonwalk out. Can't moonwalk Diana. Anyway, because of that, Dragon Priority went over to Adobe Aftershock effects.
Yeah, we'll be giving the first dragon away, and the Baron take from Qualia is nowhere near as strong, so they will not be able to try and confirm that. This Cho'Gath getting a lot of feast stacks here, sitting on 9 currently. All 6 of those minions fully grabbed, so at this point the feast will be saved up for those objectives and champions, and now Vapor is going to be a very, very beefy boy to chug through.
Yeah.
Sitting at almost 4k health
never
right
mind. Yep, goodbye. I mean, Silence lands, not the stun, so Proto Baggins is able to make her way out. But Tristana not in the greatest of spots, just swiping 2,000 gold ahead on Chalazi. Just because, you know, she might be nice net worth on her team, but everyone except for the enemy Kaisa is at or had her net worth. By everyone, I mean, you know, Corki and Cho'Gath and Karthus, and that does not feel good for Tristana. She has a Phantom Dancer at the moment, but really needs something else to really put her over the edge. It's the mid-game power trap of Tristana that we all know and love. Be another item or two until she's online.
Yeah. I mean, that actually hasn't really been a super big thing for a while, but with the Hail of Blades build, that does really kind of change her scaling opportunity. The one thing I am going to actually criticize right now a lot is Liate's vision score right now. Very, very low for a support at this point in the game. You compare the support vision scores right now, and that really does tell a tale of why some of these picks have been happening. The vision control is very, very much in favor of Adobe right now, and having the almost the lowest vision score on your team as support is bad.
Proto flashing out of the way. Kinda has to take that one. JPQ on the side of the fight, but should be bloody blocked by Vapor. They're moving in onto this mid lane T3 tower. Vapor just needs to find a demolish proc. But here comes a 5-man ultimate for the Diana, but Yurt's still taken down. Sadochi still taken down. A very clutch Cosmic Radiance comes in from J Banger. In comes the Requiem. No one dies from that one, but it's a 3-4-1 in favor of Adobe Aftershock effects. Amazing Cosmic Radiance to block pretty much all the follow-up damage after Yurt's got pretty much the best Moonfall I've seen in ages. Like,
yeah, and the problem is, like, they intentionally picked the Diana into this. This is something that they knew was going to happen here. The Nexus towers are starting to go down. This Cho'Gath can tank things up.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they want to try a little bit, because the respawn timers are a bit low. Kill goes over to Proto Baggins. They find one of the Nexus towers, but not the other in the meantime. As the TP's coming in, they're looking to flank with Tadochi here.
Yeah,
Force the uneven fight.
Behind.
That is what you got to do. But the Karthus is around in a second. The health bars are low. J Banger, though, taking down a half health. But Tadochi just gets blown up. In comes the Diana once again, but there is no follow-up damage. J Banger finally taken down. The Diana's already dead. Jalazi's just doing free damage on the side in the meantime, as well as the Defile coming in from Takeji. That's a 4-4-3, or sorry, 4-for-2 at the end of the day. Vapor still has to respawn from the previous fight. Buster shot out. They find the kill onto the Karthus, make that an ace 4-3 as the Tristana falls in recompense.
Yeah, this is
Vapor
the
STP. They can just go for the end here.
Yeah, this is the composition difference here coming through. The Taric really putting in a lot of work against this team here, and it is just kind of rough because you did opt into this. You had the Diana picked after the Taric. You knew that Cosmic Radiance was going to be there to counter any of those big moonfalls. That was about the best opportunity that Qualia was ever going to have at that point in the game, and the fact that it got countered so heavily really just goes to show you how much of a draft difference that game really turned out to be.
Yeah, I feel like it was draft if both games, to be fair. Grant you, Qualia had a better draft in that game number 2, but I think... I mean, we mentioned it in draft. They don't have a way to deal with the Taric. The Taric just deals with them just so well. The Taric was first picked. They know... They opted the entire comp into this Taric, right? How do you dive a Taric composition? You don't. You play a poke composition, or you play a straight up team 5v5 team fight and try to separate and basically just try to peel off, right? They didn't have peel. They went for the 5v4 dive comp, but it doesn't work if you don't pick anyone, and even if you get the pick, there's the Taric there anyway. That side of W Aftershock effects still played that comp very, very well.
Yeah, absolutely there. And I think Adobe looked really solid. I think they kind of had a real strong understanding of what their composition was trying to accomplish there. They used the Taric ultimate really, really well. They got this Cho'Gath. The Cho'Gath winning that top lane really set the tempo for that game there. The fact that Renekton never got off the ground and that was their definitive winning lane, that is a huge, huge problem when you go into the big game. And this Renekton, you saw, would TP into the backline late game and just accomplish literally nothing because he was just dying before he even did any damage.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I want to say draft MVP here, but I have to ask you, who do you give the MVP to this particular series?
That is a tough call. I feel like ZFG really does get a lot of this. Takeji also is like, those are the two that I'm stuck between right now. ZFG, while not having the insane scoreline, game 1 did get a lot of backline access that really opened up team fights for Adobe. Takeji, though, really performing well. I think I got to give it to CFG just because Takeji, while the ultimates did confirm some kills, a lot of that was just Karthus being Karthus. And ZFG really getting a lot of solo kills or forcing people out of important fights is what allowed Adobe to kind of clean sweep a lot of these objectives.
Yeah, that being said, though, we're going to take a quick break as we get ready to go with our interview. That will actually be to Keji that we are interviewing as well. So don't go there. We'll be right back with more of the CEA Corporate Week 4 match. Welcome back, everybody, to the Corporate Esports Association Week 4 League of Legends League. My name is Fennec, joined on the desk today by Thousand Eyes, and we have with us the jungler for Adobe Aftershock Effects. Love the team name, by the way. Takeji, how does it feel coming out of that 2-0 sweep?
Oh, it feels really good. We got 2-0 sweep last week, so we definitely needed a win under our belt.
Uh, I gotta believe it, especially you guys improving to a 2-2 record, so going right back in the middle of the pack with the Swiss system. Looked very, very strong performances from all you guys today, especially coming out of that jungle. The Hecarim game one was nasty. Going in onto that game number one, can you walk us through the draft a little bit? Kind of what were your thoughts as you actually first rounded the Hecarim there, and the draft kind of played out, and that Kassadin last pick kind of caught all of us off guard, but I really liked it.
Yeah, so we kind of just played towards the counter pick mid. Our mid laner noticed that the enemy mid laner played kind of only assassin mages, and so he was kind of pocketing the Kassadin the entire time. And so once the everybody got he picked Diana, we're like, oh, it's free, right? Like he's just gonna pick Kassadin and win. We were gonna try and ban like his LeBlanc, his Fizz, but our top laner didn't want to deal with like the Garen and Darius, so that's why we just perma banned those two champs. And then if they picked the assassin mid or assassin mage mid, then Cassidy was just a free pick. And then for the Hecarim, that's just a comfort pick. I just wanted to pick that before they could, I guess, get it out. And it looked like he was the enemy jungler was doing that. So I don't know if you noticed the first game. he banned Nidalee and picked Graves, and then he did the opposite the next game. So I think
Yeah.
they were heavily targeting me. So I really wanted to make sure that I got my pick in first before like the second round of bans came through, and then I would have like nothing to play.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so just continuing on that, I know one of the big kind of like changes recently for Hecarim has been like kind of this chem tank Hecarim thing and going for a little bit more of a tank Hecarim. But I saw you kind of went for the classic build, the Divine Sunderer, and just going for that. And you were stealing a couple of kills. There were a couple of kills there. I think you kind of took away from people. Was it just like you wanted to just put the pedal down and try and carry the game as hard as possible, or was
We
it just
have a big problem of like, no, you get the kill. No, you get the kill kind of thing. And I am like, I'm so over that kind of mentality. So I'm just like, I'm just taking everything. Like I don't necessarily like, we just kill secure and then we go on our
yeah?
ways. And I
There
did
was
get really, really fed where at the point I probably should have been giving some of them off, but I can't tell you how many times we've let somebody just go because we're like, oh, we thought we had that, or we thought someone else had that.
yeah, there was one specifically I remember of the Tristana bomb was like prepped and ready to go, and I was like, oh, okay, they're gonna give this to Tristana, and then the Q came out from the Hecarim and just took it. I'm like, oh, okay, that's a 10th kill now for Hecarim, and
Yeah, so that it's just like a pet peeve of our team where we always like, oh, we'll try and siphon the kill off, but if it's a kill secured, even if it looks like ridiculously like it's gonna go to someone else, we still just take it just to avoid those situations in the future.
Uh, Moving on to game number 2, though. You guys ended up picking up the Karthus, which was banned away from you game number 1. Um, Obviously, less aggressive at the jungler, more towards that power farmer. But you guys drafted this Taric, and then Qualia just kind of drafted a bunch of dive into you. So, what were your thoughts about that draft?
Oh, so yeah, we switched our support. We wanted to give Jay a chance because we noticed that they were banning all of my junglers out and not targeting some of our priority picks on the other lanes. And so we noticed that, and we were like, oh, hey, maybe Jay can play this next game and we can get a Tark in. And then they just opened up Karthus, right? They didn't want to see the Hecarim anymore. And then they did the switcheroo with Graves and Nidalee. And so I was completely fine with picking Karthus and just kind of forfeiting the entire early game of the jungle. Just kind of like, hey guys, we're giving up kind of all the control. I'm just going to path away from Nidalee. Don't take 2v2 fights. Don't try to fight your laner. Just, chill out. And kind of played out to our advantage. Let all of our lanes scale up, and yeah, not much Nidalee can do against a Karthus with the Arc and 2 ADCs.
I mean,
yeah,
Corki does magic damage. Come on.
Yeah,
it's still a
ranged
damage
carry.
carry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I did actually want to talk a little bit about the fact that you instead of the flash went for the exhaust smite, and I know some of that is just for the kind of dueling potential Karthus can have with those solo lay wastes, but like can you talk a little bit more about why you prefer going that exhaust over the flash on champions like Karthus?
I mean, honestly, I don't. This is the first time I've ever played Karthus in the jungle. Not sorry. This is not like the first game I've ever played Karthus. Obviously, they scouted it before. They saw that I played Karthus. They banned it the first game. But
Mhm.
this is like the first time this season I've been kind of playing with jungle, and I'm not too comfortable with like getting rid of my defensive summoner, for example, for like an exhaust. So it was a little bit of a transitioning period for me. But I realized that flash doesn't really do anything for a Karthus. Like if you're flashing away as low health, you're defeating the purpose of your passive, which is to go in and die and then ult. And
Mhm.
so exhaust kind of just extends that period of you being low or being this priority target for everyone while also keeping you alive, right? And then things like Diana, Nidalee, people that are trying to jump in on you and kill you and snipe you, the exhaust just helps so much. I don't know. I think a couple of times in the mid game where Diana tried to all in myself and my mid laner, I just exhausted him and then his entire combo is just gone. And a flash can't do that. If I flash out of that combo, my Corki's still dead. Or if I flash out of that combo, I don't get the value of if I died. But luckily, every time I exhausted, I kind of just lived and then got full value. So yeah,
Yeah.
exhaust just seems like a natural pick for Karthus specifically. It's kind of like that Shaco with Ignite. He already has a TP or
Mhm.
he already has a dash. Doesn't really need that flash. Doesn't bring any more, to him. So you take Ignite. So same with Karthus.
Yeah, it looked very nice. There were a couple of times, as you mentioned, that we saw, and I think that was actually mentioned on the broadcast where that exhaust did come in clutch in those 2v2s and in those 2v1s. Moving outside of the scope of the series here, what are your all's goals for the rest of the season? Obviously, we're a little bit under halfway through the through the first Swiss. What are you guys looking for this season as far as goals go?
I just want everyone on our team to kind of get a collective learning of League. I know the kind of skill disparity between the teams or in between the players are pretty vast. So there are players like myself and the other jungler was actually a very good jungler as well, where
Yep.
we're probably as a collective unit as strong as our weakest player. And so what we're looking to do is kind of bring everyone up from like the bottom up. And our goal is to play together, get familiar with everyone's play styles, and then work towards bringing those players up in terms of rank. And this might be like through playing together, through solo duo queuing with them, and then that progress together as a team and them elevating their gameplay will only increase our chances of winning the tournament. So I guess the overall goal is just kind of just bringing everyone up to uh, to a higher level by utilizing some of the best members of everyone's team. And I see that through majority of the teams. I could probably see that through the other team because their jungler was also like a Masters player, and so it really felt that the same way.
Thousand.
Yeah, I mean, so as far as like going forward, are there any like big glaring difficulties that I mean, obviously you mentioned the, kill securing aspect, but are there any other things that your team is like looking at and saying like, okay, these are the things we really, really need to try and improve on and work as a team to make ourselves better and actually take on some of these top teams that you're going up against?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest, struggles on any kind of team is shot calling and being the dominant voice within your team and being like, hey, this is what we're doing. Because everyone in league, when you play solo queue, you kind of have to be your own think engine. You kind of have to play for yourself. But when you play on a team, it's like completely different, right? You have somebody like a captain that's shot calling for you, and whether or not you want to do it, you kind of have to do it, right? And so I think that's what we're looking as a team to work on more so is that we have a bunch of players who played a lot of solo queue who are very talented in their own regards in solo queue. But when it comes to team play and someone makes a call, everyone's kind of trying to do their own thing. So I think the biggest thing that we can work on is if someone makes a call or if the shot caller makes a call in that situation, for all of us to kind of jump aboard of that. Hey, I want to kill target Diana or something. Everybody coming in and just killing Diana rather than splitting damage throughout the entire team. Or hey, I want to do Baron here. Uh, Everyone committing towards Baron rather than trying to chase a kill or go get another tower from another lane. So things like that. Just believing in the shot caller and then executing on it and not kind of second guessing.
Outside of League of Legends, though, obviously here at CEA, y'all are playing for a charity. I believe your charity is Child's Play. Uh, can you tell me a bit about Child's Play and why you guys are choosing to support them?
It's been like a long-standing tradition. We're not like a new team within CEA. Some of us have been veterans. Like I played on the League of Legends team a couple of years ago. I played on the Overwatch team. Child's Play has just been our default kind of charity that we go for because we kind of strongly agree with what they do. Bringing games towards children that are underprivileged and giving them the same opportunities that we have, which is just this love of playing video games and playing with others that also love video games. So it couldn't be a like more perfect match for us.
And I guess finally, anyone you want to shout out in particular, anything else you want to say before we wrap up the interview?
Oh yeah, shout out to my team, Yuan, Quinn, Tim, Shota, and Jay for stepping it up today. Like honestly, I couldn't have had those crazy KDAs or those crazy games without them. And Yuan kind of popped off that second game. He's ZFG won the quirky mid last game, kind of just 1v9 them at the end, and Jay stepped in cold. That's definitely not easy to do. Coming in halfway through a series and trying to play is extremely hard to do. So props to everyone for stepping up and kind of just playing their A game and bringing it home.
No.
That being said, though, thank you very much for joining us here on the desk for the interview. Uh, and I enjoyed watching the series. I hope you have a great rest of your day. That said, we are all done with today's corporate broadcast. Still have a collegiate one to go, so you want to make sure you stay tuned for that one. That said, until then, from everyone here at Corporate Esports Association, admins production team, our producer Brennan, and everyone in between, my name is Finnick,
My name is That's Nice.
and we will see you next time around.